The reason Elias and I broke up was because of something very small. After I had spent 3 hours cooking, he said one thing: "You put in too much salt." Just because of that? Even my best friend could not understand. If you miss out on a catch like Elias just because you're acting out of spite, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Regret? I shook my head. She did not know that all I had left was relief. Chapter 01. We've been broken up for 3 years. Even if I had been acting out of spite, that would have faded away with time long ago. My tone was very calm. So calm that it did not sound like I was mentioning someone I had once loved for 5 years. On the other end of the phone, Lily sighed, seeming somewhat regretful. I'll say something unpleasant. With Elias's background, the heir to a real estate company, graduating first in finance, 6 feet tall, and a face good enough to be in movies. After leaving him, you'll never find another person with such good conditions. I did not respond and leaned against the balcony door. I opened a small crack, and scattered sounds of rain slipped in. Because of that, Lily's voice became muffled. It's not that I'm materialistic, but back then, why exactly did you break up with Elias? Even now, you still haven't given me a reasonable explanation. When I ask, you just say your personalities didn't match. Did it take you 5 years of dating to realize your personalities didn't match? I was left speechless by her question. I had not lied to Lily. If one looked deeper, it really did come down to those 4 weightless words. In 5 years of dating, Elias and I had only argued once, but after that one argument, we broke up. There was no cheating, nor was there any major issue of principle. It was only because we had not eaten a meal together in a very long time. After he graduated, he joined his family's company and had many business dinners. Every time he came home, he was drunk, and the next day, he would be nowhere to be seen again. I casually complained, "We haven't eaten together in so long. The project has been busy lately." "Once this busy period is over." "That's what you said last time too." Elias stopped looking at the report in his hands and raised his head to look at me. That look in his eyes said, "Why have you suddenly become so unreasonable?" In that instant, I swallowed all the words I had wanted to say. "Forget it. You're busy." The last straw that broke the camel's back was a certain Saturday afternoon. Elias said he did not have any business dinner that night and would come back to keep me company. I was in a very good mood and specially cooked. Following a recipe, I braised beef brisket for 3 hours. I sat at the dining table, waiting expectantly for Elias's evaluation. I thought today would definitely be a very good night. I had made a delicious dish when I passed by the flower market. I had bought the freshest lilies. The owner had even praised me, saying the white dress I was wearing suited me very well. But Elias only said 4 words. "You put in too much salt." In that instant, I suddenly wanted to cry. I took several deep breaths, and my expression was so bad that Elias could not ignore it. He frowned and asked me, "What's wrong? Don't you have anything else to say?" "What?" "Nothing. I'm a little tired." "Are you angry?" "Why?" "Don't tell me it's because I said there was too much salt." Chapter 02. Elias seemed to think this reason was completely unreasonable. He even laughed. "Victoria, you're not someone this unreasonable." I did not know that. In Elias's heart, I was that kind of person. Yes, because my parents had not been by my side since I was young. I was stronger than people my age. But in these 5 years, whenever I tried to open my heart and reveal even a trace of ordinary human vulnerability, Elias would use that sentence to force me back into my original shape. But I was just an ordinary person. After cooking for 3 hours, was it wrong for me to want to hear him say it tasted good, or that I had worked hard? Could it be that everything was my own fault? I stood up, and in the end, I still could not finish that meal. "Let's break up." Saying the word break up out loud was much easier than I had imagined. Elias put down his chopsticks. The way he looked at me held surprise and confusion. In the end, it became displeasure at being offended. "Are you serious?" Just because I said, "You put in too much salt?" "Not entirely." I shook my head and replied. After a long silence, Elias did something very Elias. He stood up and looked down at me from above. When he spoke, his tone was calm and rational. "Victoria, your current state is very emotional. Let's both calm down for one night and talk properly. I'm not emotional, I interrupted Elias. Based on past experience, the calm down Elias spoke of was only a one-sided way of ignoring me. It would make me reflect in fear and anxiety, wondering whether I had done something wrong. In the end, under that suffocating atmosphere, I would lower my head first, apologize to him, and make up. Elias, the person you like isn't me. You only like someone who won't cause you trouble. If I were like those exes you had in high school, someone who would act spoiled, get angry because you didn't reply to messages, get jealous and give you the cold shoulder because another woman appeared beside you, would you still like me? Elias frowned slightly. In that instant, I realized with incomparable clarity that all these years, it was not that Elias could not sense my sadness and pain, but that I was too easy to coax. I could coax myself back to normal, so why would he need to waste his own emotions? I laughed out loud and, through my tears, drew a dead-end mark over our relationship. Let's end it here. It was such a small thing, yet explaining it became like a thorn stuck in my throat. I could neither swallow it nor spit it out. Then will you come to my wedding? Lily choked. After a few seconds of silence, she sighed. I'll go. Of course I have to go and back you up. But you have to come back and hand me the invitation in person. I want to see whether you've been bullied out there these past 3 years. In the end, no matter how much she said, she was only afraid that I had suffered grievances. Chapter 03. The day I returned to Suzhou. It was, as always, a rainy day. Lily came to pick me up. The restaurant she chose was a little hole-in-the-wall place near our high school. In her words, it was to reminisce about the past. Meeting people from the past in a place from the past seemed like something only natural. After 3 years, Elias had not changed much. He lowered his eyes slightly and swept his gaze over my face. There was no dramatic pause. He only curved his lips in the most natural way. So you still know how to come back. I almost thought you were going to settle down over there. Elias's tone was too familiar. Not like he was facing an ex he had cut off contact with for 3 years. It was more like he was speaking to an unimportant old friend. Alone? He lazily lifted his chin and gestured. I'm eating with a few friends. Want to come in and share a table? No. We were all adults. There was no need to make things too ugly. A faint, distant smile floated on my lips. I'm meeting someone today. Maybe next time. Sure. Elias did not ask further. He turned sideways and made way for me. Those 2 words rested lightly on the tip of his tongue, like an agreement had been reached. Next time. I passed by Elias and walked toward the private room deeper down the corridor. Most of the dishes had already been served. Lily was boredly picking a piece of cantaloupe from the fruit platter and stuffing it into her mouth. Because of that, her voice was a little muffled. Why did you take so long going to the restroom? I ran into someone I knew and chatted for a bit. Chapter 04. The news that I had returned to Suzhou spread very quickly. The long quiet high school group chat became lively again, saying they wanted to throw me a welcome back dinner. It was not because I was especially popular. It was just that everyone needed a reason to gather again. The welcome back dinner was set at a private restaurant along the river. More than a dozen people came. I could not name half of them. But in the end, old friends were reuniting, and everything carried an added filter of youth. The atmosphere soon became familiar. Everyone chatted about all kinds of things from all over the place. After turning several corners, the topic eventually landed on me. Victoria, you've been away from Suzhou for so long. Have there been any new developments in your love life? As soon as those words fell, Domingo, who was sitting across from me, chuckled twice. Maybe he was drunk, or maybe alcohol had given him the courage to speak the truth. Do you even need to ask? After Victoria dated someone like Elias, it would be hard for her to date again. Those words seemed to tear open a gap. The curiosity of the group could no longer be restrained, and everyone surged toward me one after another. Honestly, with Elias's qualifications, after leaving him, the rest of your life is basically going downhill. Victoria, back then, when you quietly started dating Elias without saying a word, we were all betting on whether you could last 3 months. Who would have thought? You looked so ordinary, yet you ended up dating him the longest. 5 years. That was 5 whole years. We all thought the fairy tale of Cinderella marrying the prince was about to become reality. We had even prepared the wedding money. But then you suddenly went north. You were away for so long. Was it because you were hurt by love? Laughter rose and fell, carrying the recklessness catalyzed by alcohol. Lily's chopsticks paused for a moment. The smile on her face had already vanished completely from the very beginning, just as she was about to speak. I heard my name from far away. What are you all talking about? Why so happy? A voice came from the entrance of the private room, just in time to suppress the room full of laughter. Elias stood at the door, one hand resting on the doorframe. He was wearing a light gray cashmere coat, his posture very casual. He did not look like he had come specifically to attend a class reunion. The atmosphere froze for half a second, then was broken by Domingo's voice. Someone moved a chair. Someone called for the waiter to add another set of bowls and chopsticks. Elias had a natural kind of magic. Becoming the focus of the crowd was something that came effortlessly to him. He had enjoyed this treatment from the day I first met him. He did not need to deliberately walk toward anyone. Everyone would walk toward him, including the former me. Chapter 05. The seat everyone cleared out was right beside my right hand. This was probably a common human flaw. People liked watching relationships that had long ended arrive at a tearful reunion ending like some third-rate idol drama. Elias pulled out the chair and sat down beside me. He carried with him a bit of the damp chill from outside. Because of his arrival, the atmosphere at the table changed subtly. The people who had just been teasing me about my past with Elias now all closed their mouths. But their eyes were busier than their mouths, eagerly shuttling back and forth between me and Elias. I didn't expect next time to come so quickly. Once Elias said this, no one present was deaf. What next time? Lily frowned and asked me. My expression did not change as I explained. The day I came back, we ran into each other at a restaurant and said hello. It was a very ordinary thing, but in everyone else's ears, it seemed to take on a different meaning. Domingo laughingly picked up the topic. That means you two are fated. And I heard Elias hasn't had anyone by his side these past 3 years. Maybe he's been keeping himself pure for you. Lily snapped back. Can't eating shut your mouth? He closed his mouth awkwardly. In contrast, Elias had neither anger at being teased nor embarrassment on his face. It was as if he were not one of the people involved in the topic. Instead, he reached out, poured a cup of tea, and pushed it to my hand, with an intimacy that crossed the line. Your stomach isn't good. Drink something warm. Domingo exchanged a knowing look with the person beside him. The meaning was extremely obvious. See? As long as we give them a little push. The two of them getting back together is just around the corner. I suddenly found it a little boring. Elias was always like this. He never placed his sincerity openly on the table. He only let things drift freely and let you guess. If you guessed correctly, he would reward you as he saw fit. If you guessed wrong, you would have to wait in fear and trembling for punishment to descend. So much so that later, it took me a very long time to learn that there should be no reward and punishment system in love. I did not push it away. I only said thank you and let it sit there, until the heat completely dispersed. Chapter 06. The dinner ended. Since everyone had rarely gotten together, they suggested going to KTV. I smiled and politely declined. Lily had originally wanted to go back with me, but seeing the reluctant look in her eyes, I smiled and gave her a push. I know you. Go have fun. The moment I walked out of the elevator carrying my bag, Elias was waiting downstairs. He did not say anything else. He only lifted his chin slightly and gestured. I'll drive you. I knew what Elias was thinking. He thought I had come back because of him. Everyone except Lily thought so. I did not blame them for thinking that. To me, this city of Suzhou, apart from Lily, more than half of the remaining memories were related to Elias. 5 years was enough to embed another person into one's body and make them a kind of habit. But over these 3 years, I had already learned to peel Elias out of my life. I called a car. After being rejected by me, Elias did not insist. Fine, then I'll wait with you. He rubbed his fingertips together and spoke casually. How long are you staying in Suzhou this time? For a while. The night wind brushed against the hem of my dress, and I chatted with Elias on and off. Are you still going back north? Yes. Elias's voice lagged half a beat before following up. I asked Lily. She said you came back to handle something. What exactly is it? Maybe I can help. I glanced at Elias. I had no intention of mentioning the wedding. Originally, I had only wanted to invite a few close friends for a simple gathering, but my husband's family was afraid the people around me would find out and misunderstand that I was not valued. That was why I prepared to hold a small wedding, just as a gesture. It's a private matter. My car is here. I'll go first. Chapter 07. The warm air was on in the car, and that faint discomfort gradually faded. I opened WeChat and saw a few unread messages beside the pinned chat box. I tapped it open and read them one by one. They were only a few trivial daily messages mixed with concern for me. I had just sent over my shared location when a voice call from the other side immediately came in. I answered it. Perhaps he had not expected me to answer so quickly, because the other end fell quiet for a moment. Did it end? I leaned back against the seat and looked at Sujo, which I had been away from for 3 years. There were no major changes, but my heart was much calmer than it had been 3 years ago. They went to KTV. I was too lazy to go. I'm alone in the car now, getting ready to go back to the hotel. Did you eat enough? Did you drink? Were you happy today? I was amused and deliberately drew out my voice as I asked back. Sam, are you asking a kindergarten kid? Though I said that, I still cooperated and answered him one by one. I ate enough. I didn't drink. It was okay. Okay means you weren't very happy. Sam's voice was low. It came through the receiver, and even the noise seemed to have its sharp edges swallowed, becoming rounded and gentle. How did you know? Because when you're truly happy, you say a lot. You tell me what you ate, who you saw, what funny thing someone said, how you laughed so hard you almost couldn't breathe, and how you couldn't even speak clearly. I pursed my lips, and my eyes suddenly felt very sore. I ran into Elias today. I squeezed out that sentence dryly. I did not rush to clarify the relationship. Instead, I slowed down and steadied my emotions. On the other end of the phone, Sam did not urge me. He only stayed with me, wasting time second by second. At the class reunion, someone deliberately left the seat beside me empty so he could sit there. They even egged me on. The more I spoke, the more wronged I felt. Clearly, when it happened, I had still been thinking that it was no big deal. Everyone was a classmate. There was no need to make things look ugly. But in front of this person, all the emotions I had pressed down surged back up. It was as if I had finally found someone who could stand up for me. They said that after leaving Elias, I would never find anyone that good again. They also said I looked ordinary. I sniffed, my tone carrying a bit of childish defiance. I'm pretty. The other end of the phone was silent for 2 seconds. It was not the kind of suffocating silence that required me to watch someone's expression and guess their emotions. It was a serious kind of silence, where he softened his breathing and listened to every word I said without missing a single one. Who said that? Why are you asking? Are you going to put sacks over their heads? That would be illegal. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I could not help laughing when I spoke. My voice carried an unsteady breathiness. Then how is this law-abiding citizen going to take revenge on them? I'll remember their names. If we meet next time, I won't shake hands with them. You're so childish. I complained softly. Suddenly, I did not feel so awful anymore. Victoria. Sam said my name. It was not the tone of someone deliberately coaxing me, but rather him stating something he believed to be fact. You're pretty. They're the ones with no taste. I rubbed the dampness from the corners of my eyes with the back of my hand and watched streetlight after streetlight sweep backward. Sam, I miss you so much. I know. Chapter 08. When Sam said he knew, it was not the kind of I know that had no follow-up. I did not know how many more all-nighters he had pulled, but the moment I opened my eyes the next day, Sam sent me a screenshot of a page, a flight to Hongqiao at 9 in the morning the day after tomorrow. I thought I was still half asleep, so I sent over a question mark in a daze. Sam answered with perfect confidence. Didn't you say you wanted to see me? I did not. Stop flattering yourself, I replied, saying the opposite of what I meant. After putting down the phone, I covered half my face with my arm and could not help curling my lips. Lily sat across from me and stuffed a mouthful of noodle soup into her mouth. In the end, she still could not help teasing me. What good thing happened? Do you know you're smiling so cheaply right now? I deliberately pressed my lips together. How am I? Maybe it's because the weather is good today. Sujo without the cover of dark clouds was so sunny it was outrageous. Lily swallowed her last mouthful of breakfast. We set off for a studio we had previously booked to try on wedding dresses. Lily had no need to discuss marriage, and I had dragged her here to be my advisor. But as soon as we entered, her gaze was drawn to the room full of gauze and silk. She impatiently changed into a heavily embroidered mermaid-style wedding dress. Lily lifted the hem of the dress with one hand and spun in front of me. How is it? How is it? I suddenly remembered how. Back in high school, we used to sit on the sofa together and read shoujo manga. Back then, she had also wrapped herself in a floral bedsheet and spun in front of me just like this. I helped her put on the veil and arranged it carefully and seriously. Especially beautiful. All right, you bride-to-be. Hurry up and try one too. Under the shop owner's recommendation, I changed into a lace and satin wedding dress. There were no unnecessary decorations. The cut of the skirt was clean and simple, while the neckline and sleeves were embellished with delicate handmade lace, bringing out a touch of softness. Lily stared at me quietly without speaking, and her eyes suddenly reddened. She sniffed hard and fanned her eyes with her hand. Damn it! Why do I feel like crying? I smiled and pushed her arm lightly. Why are you crying? Are you reluctant to let me go? You ran off and abandoned me 3 years ago, and I haven't even settled that score with you yet. I just feel that you're really doing well now. Looking at someone who loved me shedding tears for me, I suddenly thought of another person who loved me. What expression would Sam have when he saw me in a wedding dress? What are you thinking about? Even your ears are red. Lily pinched my cheek and started playing around with me. The wind chime at the door rang once. Someone pushed the door open and came in. I did not pay attention, only assuming it was another customer, until the shop assistant's voice sounded. Sir, are you here to pick up a custom suit? No, I'm here to pick up the cheapao my mother customized. That voice made my fingers pause. I turned my head. It was Elias. His gaze passed over the shop assistant, skimmed across the layers of white gauze, and landed on me. Elias's expression did not change much. He had not been like this in high school. Perhaps, after years of struggling and fighting in the business world, he had also wrapped himself in a layer of flawless propriety. But I keenly noticed that his hand tightened for an instant, then loosened. Very beautiful, Elias said. It suits you. A very polite sentence. I nodded in response, but Elias did not withdraw his gaze. His eyes moved from the wedding dress to the ring finger of my left hand. It was empty. I had been afraid of losing the ring, so when I returned to Suzhou, I simply did not bring it back with me. Elias withdrew his gaze, and the corners of his lips curved into a very faint arc, as if he had confirmed something. Victoria. He called my name, his voice steady as he asked, Did you come back to Suzhou because you have some kind of plan? That question was asked very cleverly. Chapter 09. I had returned to Suzhou, and I had also come to try on wedding dresses. Yet there was no wedding ring on my ring finger. Almost instantly, I understood the implication behind Elias's words. He thought that, after 3 years, I had finally ended this long Cold War. He thought I felt that I had reached the right age and that it was time to get married. And he, an ex-boyfriend who was outstanding in every aspect, was undoubtedly the best candidate. I did not answer Elias. It was not that I was deliberately being mysterious, but because I understood Elias. Once he had a firm assumption in his heart. No matter how much I explained, he would take it as me trying to cover things up. Elias had always had everything go his way in life. He had that confidence. Go change your clothes. I tugged Lily's wrist as a signal. Lily rolled her eyes at him and followed me into the changing room. When we came out, Elias had already left. Instead, the chat box between us, which had been silent for 3 whole years, suddenly had a new message. Elias, Victoria. Let's meet sometime when you're free. Lily frowned hard when she saw it. What does he mean by this? When you left 3 years ago, he didn't ask or care about you at all, and now he's delusional enough to beg to get back together? I thought for a moment and turned off my phone screen, because Elias did not think that giving me the silent treatment was the same as not asking or caring about me. He even thought that waiting through a 3-year empty period was already the greatest sincerity he could offer. Chapter 10. On the day Sam landed, I asked Lily whether she wanted to go to the airport with me. Lily shook her head like a rattle drum. No, I'm not going to get in the way of you lovebirds being all clingy after a long separation. I denied again and again that I was not the kind of person who forgot her friends at the sight of romance. But after picking him up, I realized that I actually was. While we were stuck in traffic, I was distracted and glanced at Sam in the passenger seat. The exhaustion from pulling consecutive all-nighters and rushing around made him lean back with his eyes closed to rest. His sharp brow bones were illuminated perfectly by the sunlight. What are you looking at? Sam's voice was hoarse, carrying a bit of fatigue. His eyelashes trembled slightly, but he showed no intention of opening his eyes. I felt a little guilty at being caught. I turned my eyes away and pretended to be driving seriously. I was looking at your dark circles. They're from missing you. Sam's voice was very casual, even though I had known him for 3 years. Whenever I heard him express his feelings so directly, I still found it unbelievable. The fingers I had wrapped around the steering wheel curled unconsciously, and a very strange feeling came from the area around my heart. It was slightly numb and tingling, twisted together. Even my teeth felt a little itchy. I really wanted to bite Sam. Was I sick? I swallowed. Did you just say a very cheesy pickup line? Why? Sam opened his eyes and tilted his head slightly, very confused, and very serious. What I said was the truth. Chapter 11. Sam attached particular importance to meeting Lily. He had not even caught up on sleep yet, but he was already standing in front of the mirror, having changed into 3 different outfits. Will this one look too serious? What if your friend thinks I'm hard to get along with? I popped a cherry tomato into my mouth. Finally, it was my turn to tease him. You weren't even this nervous when you met my parents, but meeting my friends scares you? Sam's hand paused as he adjusted his tie. Because you care about her. So I care about the opinion of the person you care about. He said that sentence like a tongue twister, yet it somehow made me want to cry. I did not know why, but when facing Sam, I always had so many tears. Actually, I did not like crying. When my parents went to work out of town during middle school, I did not cry. When they each remarried and had new families, I did not cry either. Even when I rented a place outside school by myself and a drunkard banged on my door in the middle of the night, I only sat there holding a kitchen knife until dawn, then still tidied myself up and went to morning self-study as usual. But in front of Sam, all those rules I relied on to survive stopped working. Because the first time we met, I was crying. At that time, I had come to a new city, unfamiliar with both the place and the people. The dozen or so resumes I sent out sank like stones into the sea, with no response. Then I ran into a heartless landlord and was kicked out of the rental apartment in the middle of the night. When I dragged my luggage out to look for a hotel, I ran into a torrential downpour, and the call from my father happened to come then. It was not to comfort me. Instead, he scolded me fiercely from the start, saying that it was bad enough that I could not do anything well, but I could not even hold on to a golden son-in-law like Elias. So what was the point of me being alive? I did not answer. I calmly hung up the phone, but at that moment, tears burst from my eyes. I crouched on the ground and cried hard, without the slightest image to speak of. I could not stop dry heaving and trembling, and my whole body went numb. People came and went in a hurry, probably all thinking I was a lunatic. Hold your breath. A man's voice sounded abruptly. Immediately after, an umbrella opened above me, blocking the rain that kept hitting my body. The man bent down, his brows and eyes soaked by the rain. He frowned slightly, and his voice mixed with the rain, carrying a hint of concern that was not easy to detect. You're having respiratory alkalosis right now. Listen to my instructions. Inhale. 1, 2, slowly breathe out. I struggled to exhale. Only after several rounds did my breathing stabilize, and I stopped trembling. Wipe yourself. The other person handed me a handkerchief. I reached out and took it. After touching it, I looked up and said, "It's wet." He froze for a moment, only then realizing that he had been standing in the rain for too long. His whole body was completely soaked, let alone the handkerchief in his pocket. Sorry. Thank you. This meeting on a rainy night ultimately ended with Sam taking me to the nearest hotel. He was even afraid I would misunderstand and think he had other intentions. On the way to the hotel, Sam always kept a safe distance. He was even mistaken by the hotel lobby receptionist for a stalker. I thought Sam would at least complain. If it were me, standing in the heavy rain and kindly helping for so long, only to be misunderstood as a bad person. I would probably wish I could turn back time and choose not to get involved. I'm sorry. It was all because of me that I delayed you for so long. It would have been better if you hadn't bothered with me. After I finally dispelled the receptionist's thought of calling the police, I apologized to Sam. You think you caused me trouble. Sam stopped wiping his clothes and lowered his eyes slightly to look at me. He smiled, the curve very faint, revealing a dimple on one side. Because he had wiped his hair, it was also messy, softening the inherent sharpness of his appearance. What happened tonight if it hadn't been you, but someone else? I still would have helped. That was out of my own will. The lady at the front desk didn't understand the situation. Seeing a girl like you being followed and misunderstanding me was normal. She could have chosen not to speak up. This isn't part of her job, she reminded you. Also out of her own will. Everyone meant well, including your apology right now. So you don't need to feel burdened. Sam shook his head. If you really feel embarrassed, then treat the two kind-hearted people who acted bravely to breakfast. You too? My gaze moved between the receptionist and Sam. It's almost 3 now. Where I live is half an hour away from here, and I have to be on duty at 6 tomorrow morning. I can only stay here, so breakfast has to include my share. Over one dinner. Lily interrogated me about the 3 years between Sam and me clearly, down to every detail, before finally announcing with satisfaction that it was over. I drove her home. Here, Sam brought this. Last time, when you complained on the phone that your skin was bad and you kept getting pimples. He heard it. I handed the skincare gift bag to Lily. His aunt runs a beauty salon, something about a high-end professional line. I don't really understand it either. Anyway, if it works well for you, just tell me. I'll send it to you for free. Not bad. I'm benefiting from your glow too. I take back what I said about you never finding another person this good. Lily joked with a smile. This little bit of stuff is enough to bribe you? Lily clicked her tongue and said seriously. What kind of person do you take me for? I clearly analyzed it carefully for you. A family of doctors. Already deputy director of cardiac surgery at such a young age. With a future so bright it keeps people awake at night. His face is full marks too. And he's 8 centimeters taller than Elias. But after being serious for 1 second, she immediately wiggled her eyebrows at me. I'm kidding, actually. I really am that kind of vulgar person who loves small benefits. You. I sighed helplessly. The next second, Lily's voice became especially serious. Victoria. Before this, I always thought Elias was pretty good, at least materially. He didn't treat you badly, and he never argued with you. You also know what my family situation was like. If there were 3 days without someone getting violent, that was already good. But only today, after I met Sam, her voice was a little hoarse, as if a ball of wet cotton had been stuffed into her throat. In my impression, you've always been especially independent. Sometimes I even wondered if you were carved from wood. You never cried, never made a fuss, always quietly stayed in your own place and did your own things. But during that meal just now, you were talking the entire time. Tiny, trivial little things, even that the delivery box you received was hard to open. You had to talk about it. I've never seen you act like that in front of Elias. Was it because Elias wouldn't listen to you? Lily reached out and wiped her cheek very quickly, as if wiping away something. Sam does. You probably don't know, but I saw it very clearly. When he was helping you shell crab, his eyes were always on your face. When you smiled, his lips curved with you. When you frowned, he also looked very solemn. She burst into laughter through her tears. Too disgustingly sweet. Next time, I absolutely won't eat with you two again. But, Lily turned her head. With a pair of tearful, shimmering eyes, she looked at me. Victoria, please stay happy like this forever. Chapter 12. The progress of preparing for the wedding advanced by leaps and bounds because of Sam's arrival. Every night before bed, we discussed the details, to the point that even in my dreams, I had married Sam several times. The wedding was set at a private manor. I lay sprawled on the table, yawning, not far away. I watched Sam discussing the details with the person in charge. Lily was keeping me company. She raised an eyebrow and gestured. So you're handing full authority over to your husband already? We discussed it together last night. At this moment, the sunlight was just right. I reached out and spread my palm. I let the bright sunlight fall on my face and narrowed my eyes. So this was what it felt like to have someone discuss things and make decisions together. There would be friction, and then someone would soften their voice to explain what they meant. It felt so new. What exactly is the benefit of showing off in front of a single person like me? Aren't you afraid I'll get jealous and randomly find someone to marry? I curled my lips. You wouldn't. You only look bold. In reality, when you meet someone you truly like, you run faster than if a dog were chasing you. Go away. Go away. Lily pushed me twice, then seemed to think of something. Oh, right. Domingo messaged me to ask what you've been doing lately. He said Elias was the one asking. Maybe he hasn't heard from you in too long and is starting to panic. Are you going to send him an invitation? Lily snorted. If you ask me, you should send him one, so he can see how happy you are now. I laughed and shook my head. We're not children anymore. Why insist on winning this petty breath of pride? If I invite Elias, he'll instead think I care about him, that I care so much I would rather casually marry someone else than lower my head. As long as I'm living well myself, isn't that enough? I held Lily's wrist to comfort her, completely unaware that the smile at the corners of my lips was soft and relieved. Chapter 13. Elias had been very busy lately. A new project had begun, and the planning proposal had been revised dozens of times but still had not passed. For half a month in a row, he had not had one full night of sleep. When his assistant reported his schedule for the day, his head was splitting with pain. Cancel tonight's dinner. All right, the assistant responded, then added, oh, right. There's one more thing. It seems your friend Domingo has called several times, saying he has something to discuss with you. Elias lowered his eyes, his gaze not moving away from the blueprints. What is it? He didn't say. He only asked you to call him back when you have time. Elias nodded and waved his hand to signal that he understood, but he did not call back. He knew it was most likely about Victoria, but lately, he had truly been so pressed by the project that he could hardly breathe. Elias thought that he had already waited for Victoria for 3 years, so there was no need to rush over this one moment. Chapter 14. On the day of the wedding, the sky was so clear it looked like a painted blue, dotted with clean clouds. It resembled a dream even more than a dream did. The guests arrived one after another. There were not many people. Most of them were from Sam's side. His parents, relatives, and friends were all present. In comparison, on my side, there were only a few classmates and colleagues with whom I had decent relationships, as well as Lily. I withdrew my gaze and let it fall back onto the mirror in front of me. The makeup artist had already finished the final touches. In the mirror, my hair was half pinned up, with a few loose strands falling beside my cheeks. The makeup was light, and between my brows and eyes, there was an unconscious smile. Lily stood behind me and helped me put on the veil. Let's go, the most beautiful bride in the whole world. Lily followed behind me as we went downstairs. As far as the eye could see, a white carpet slowly unfolded, with guests seated on both sides. Ribbons wrapped with flowers swayed in the wind, and at the end stood Sam. It was clearly a process we had rehearsed long ago. Yet at this moment, I was so nervous my hands were trembling. Take a deep breath. Lily gently touched my arm, her voice very soft. I'm right behind you. I tightened my grip on the bouquet, and the veil was lifted lightly by the wind. I took the first step. Lily had repeatedly confirmed whether I really did not need my family to accompany me on this walk. Every time, I had said no. From the very beginning, I had decided that I did not need my parents to attend the wedding. They had each remarried and had new families. When they divorced, they had also complained to the very end and torn away all dignity. If they appeared at my wedding and acted like a harmonious couple, that would be the greatest harm to me. Besides, ever since I was little, I had walked many roads alone. This time, there was someone waiting for me at the end of the road, so I had even less reason to be afraid. Step by step, I walked forward, and Sam's features became clearer and clearer. Only when I came close did I realize he was actually crying. That tear had gathered on Sam's eyelashes, made transparent by the sunlight, like a tiny crystal ball. If I looked closely, would it contain me? Such curiosity rose in me, and my hand unconsciously touched Sam's cheek. Then he held it. Thank you, Victoria. Sam's eyes were red, and his voice was dry. Thank me for what? Thank you for being willing to give me the chance to love and protect you for the rest of my life. Chapter 15. After Elias finished the online meeting and signed the last document, he put down the pen and leaned back against his chair for a moment. Only then did he remember the call from Domingo. He picked up his phone and called Domingo back. It was answered after one ring. What is it? Domingo hesitated and stammered, just as Elias's patience was about to run out. The other party finally said, Victoria got married. Did you know? Domingo's voice was very low, mixed with some subtle probing. When? To whom? Today. It should be almost over by now. I heard he's someone from the north. If not for a friend of mine who was Victoria's university classmate and saw a post from her friend at the wedding, none of us would even have known she was getting married. If you ask me, she's really not being very decent. We were classmates after all. Domingo continued speaking in bits and pieces, but Elias could no longer hear any of it. Married. How could Victoria have come back to get married? From beginning to end, he had thought that her return had something to do with him, at least to some extent. 3 years ago, when Victoria left, he did not chase after her, because he knew she would definitely come back. Sujo had him, had their 5 years of memories, and had the best friend Victoria had grown up with. Where could she possibly go? The facts were indeed as he had expected. Victoria came back. Elias thought the story would develop the way he imagined. They would reunite. Time would smooth away the unpleasant edges, and Victoria would naturally return to his side. But now, she did not want him anymore. She was going to marry someone else. Elias even absurdly thought that perhaps this was Victoria's test. Maybe, when he got there, he would discover that Victoria, wearing a wedding dress, was smiling as she waited for him to take her hand. Where is it? Where is the wedding venue? Elias desperately grabbed onto this pathetic fantasy. He did not even have time to put on his coat. He hurriedly grabbed his car keys and rushed toward the wedding venue. Chapter 16. When Elias arrived, it happened to be the bride's speech. From far away, he could clearly see Victoria's face. The sunlight adorned her perfectly, making the white wedding dress look even more elegant. Just as he had imagined, she was very beautiful. He had dated too many pretty girls, and among them, Victoria had not seemed outstanding enough. But at this moment, she was so beautiful that he could not look away. Sam. She opened her mouth, but the name she called belonged to someone else. I thought about it for a long time, but I still don't know what I should say today. I'm not very good at saying beautiful words. And in the past, I was not good at expressing myself either. When others treated me well, I didn't know how to respond. When others treated me badly, I didn't know how to refuse. But your appearance taught me one thing. She paused, her voice a little choked. That is, I deserve to be treated well. You made me know that it turns out someone will listen when I speak. I can lose my temper without restraint. I don't need to carry everything alone. You will share it with me. Thank you. Thank you for loving me. The moment Victoria's tears fell, countless images flashed through Elias's mind, finally freezing on the night they had broken up 3 years ago. During the 3 years they had been apart, Elias had spent a long time replaying every detail of that night, but he had never found his own mistake. He had clearly only told the truth. He had not deliberately nitpicked or made things difficult. How could such a single sentence make 5 years of feelings go up in smoke? Today, this question finally had an answer. It was not because of one sentence, but because of the attitude he had taken for granted over those 5 years. Victoria had been too obedient. So obedient that Elias had thought she had been born that way, independent, stubborn, not needing to be coaxed, not needing to be accompanied. So many times, when Victoria needed to be coaxed, he had deliberately ignored her. Elias understood too late, so late that Victoria had already been properly loved by someone else's side and no longer needed his belated repentance at all. Elias raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face. The taste of iron spread through his mouth. Too light, so light that it could not offset even 1/10,000th of the grievances Victoria had suffered with him. Chapter 17. By the time the wedding ended and everything was packed away, it was already late at night. I was so tired that my whole body felt as if it had fallen apart. and Sam half dragged, half carried me as we walked out. I did not expect to run into Elias. His condition really could not be considered good. The shirt on his body was wrinkled into a mess. There were dark circles beneath his eyes, and there was a cut at the corner of his lips. Victoria. Sam understood who the other person was, but he did not do anything to intensify the conflict. He only protected my shoulder, his gaze falling on me, indicating that he would not interfere. I heard you got married. Congratulations. Elias's hoarse, bitter voice squeezed out from his throat. I nodded, treating him like the most ordinary guest. I slightly curved my lips and showed a polite smile. Thank you. This wedding in Suzhou was only a gathering among close friends. If you have time, you must come to the one in the north for a drink at the wedding banquet. No. Elias's lips opened and closed several times, and in the end, he forced out a bitter smile. All right. I did not exchange any more pleasantries. I passed Elias and walked forward. Suddenly, I remembered the night I left Suzhou 3 years ago, when the driver asked me where I was going. In truth, I did not know either. At that time, there was only one thought in my mind. In those 5 years, I had taken the wrong road, but I would never look back again. Only by not looking back could I see the road beneath my feet and the person before my eyes.